There is probably a name for it. I don't know. Um, the reason why, well, I'm into AI art, and the reason why I don't do the NVIDIA graphics cards on the PC, supposedly so that I could have more control over my art or things like that, is that I've got a certain kind of environment that is not permitting me to do that. I'm older in age. I want to spend as less money on computers and equipment. I'm too familiar with the fact that um, the kind of PCs you put together have a tendency to break down more often. I'm not going to go and learn electronics to try to fix my equipment. I'll probably rather throw it out the door. I have the money to buy a new PC if I need it. But I don't want to spend on NVIDIA graphics cards or any of that kind of stuff because it has a tendency to break down if you overclock it or if you run it too long or maybe it falls out of touch with everything else. It's so much better to be running the newest, fastest hardware from a cloud computer. That's actually, though it doesn't seem like you would save money that way, you actually do save money because you're only using it when you have to. And they're doing all the maintenance, they're doing all the work, they're making sure that everything is in top peak um, fashion. And though you don't feel like you have as much control over, you do because with Hugging Face, you can set up a machine and you can configure your space and have all of the tools necessary that you want. You can do whatever you want on these cloud services. I don't see any reason why I would ever want to have a PC and get a special card on it when all the best cards are just way too expensive, and the cost of losing of having a card break down on you is just way, it's beyond, it's out of reach. It's kind of like owning a Ferrari or some high end car. It looks good on the surface until you come to the realization of what it costs to maintain something like that. It doesn't make any sense. And so there's like, it would probably be better to go to a racetrack where there might be a Ferrari for rent, or, they might have some insurance on it and rent it out for a day, or maybe just find somebody who has one and experience, maybe drive it or maybe be a passenger in the car. I mean, everybody's going to have their reasons to do one thing or another. But there's also another end to this whole spectrum of this discussion, and that is, why would I give up all of what I know about some certain area to go and pursue something else, learn that, and in learning that, lose contact with what it is that's more important to my livelihood, you know? So like if you're a lawyer or you're some professional, it's always been known that professionals um, tend to be professionals as long as somebody else can do, they can hire someone, act like through Patreon or something. They can be, through their patronage, they can get somebody to do the things that they want to do, get at it, and then get them into the environment where they can experience that, but without all of the learning and things that they just don't have time for. And so there will always be a niche for whoever needs to do those, who can pursue those other areas. And the lawyer and the doctors and all that stuff, they've got to do what they've got to do. They're not going to jump over and become rock musicians. They're probably more likely to have all this bucket list, and they're going to try all those things. So it's, the younger ones are the ones that are going to pursue those special interests. And you could last a long time at that, depending on how well you can make that cost effective and efficient. And there's some people that have hobbies where they do that sort of thing, like the 8-bit guy on YouTube. I'm not one of those guys. I have no interest in pursuing. I mean, this is as far as my providing a service for the public comes, is my website, Rock Me Amadeus, and a YouTube channel, and maybe some music I make with Udio. But those are just interests. Those are things that I want to do, and I don't want to tie myself down with any particular one and pursue it, because I don't have any, I don't want to make a career at anything. I'm not into, and the thing is that when you make a career or business or anything out of something, it always works against the grain of what it is that you really want to do. Because you're doing it for somebody else, you're not doing it for yourself. And the reason why you're doing it for someone else is just what I said, is that there are professionals that don't want to pursue those things. And they're going to pay you to do that, or you're going to be making something like a 3D program for, either you're going to do it and it's going to be interesting, you're going to do it and it's not going to be interesting. And there is money in both. It's just a matter of aligning things. But I can't really talk about that stuff because I've not made a career at anything in particular. And I'm lucky now that I don't have to make a career at anything. So I just pursue everything, and the only thing that comes out of it, the only product that comes out of that is thought. I watch lots of documentaries. I watch lots of stuff on YouTube. I think, I try stuff. I experiment with ideas. I come to realizations. I stick the stuff out there. Maybe somebody watches it. Maybe an AI picks it up and collects it into some context that to answer a question for somebody. Somehow my stuff gets incorporated because it makes it's statistically gluing some things together for the AI, that it's reinforcing it. Maybe it's other people have, there's all sorts of what ifs. What if this is happening? What if this is happening? You can never know the effect of of the word, of speaking things. It's either going to affect one person, or it's going to affect 40 or 100 or 1,000. You could speak that to 1 million people, but they may only get the first 3 seconds, and their view shows up on that channel, but it may not actually, people may not actually listen through them. So every time you see one of these YouTube channels where somebody's got 7 million views, it's probably more likely that only 70,000 actually watched the show through. And those people did it over a period of time. So every day there's probably only 100 or 1,000 or even less people watching those videos. And you would think to yourself, oh, they got 7 million views. It's possible that a lot of that was YouTube throwing people at those videos, and as they threw them onto the video, they showed them an advertisement. So they get 7 million advertisement views, and how much money is the guy on the YouTube channel getting from that? A little bit, but unless he's looking at his graphs to see what people are watching, he doesn't fully know. He won't be able to figure out what's actually going on with his channel. And the numbers just maybe are helping people to decide whether or not they want to watch the show. So there is that aspect to it. But there are also people who fake the views by paying for some. They can't sustain that. They're going to do it initially to try to encourage people to come in and watch their show. But my website, my Rock Me Amadeus website, the whole idea behind that was what MTV was really about. Because back then we didn't have an internet. We didn't really have a choice. Some people had video recorders, but they would leave their video recorders on recording MTV, and then they could pick what they wanted to look at, but still you had to fast forward, and it would take a while. So it didn't really make any sense to break up the videos. You might have had somebody creating mixtapes for their friends, but it wasn't. What was more common was people watching MTV the way they watched TV before, without VCRs. So they probably never realized the full use of the VCR to create mixtapes and things until later, not at the very first. That some it would have been more so, others it wouldn't have been. There are some that are archivists and still have those videotapes and watch them over and over again. And as a result of that, they become more and more fans of things that only lasted a short period of time, in all actuality. And their friends are going to catch up with them years later and then wonder why they latched on to something that was a fad for just a very short period of time, why they're, into some certain stuff. The idea with my site is that what really influenced people in the 80s wasn't, it was the diversity of music, but it was because people were forced to watch a diversity. Probably the reason why there's so much diversity in Manhattan is because people ride public transit, especially the subway system. You're being forced to look at somebody who's not like you. And sometimes you'll have people who are wearing the same thing, but are from a completely different race or from a different class, or, and they look at each other and they're like, how in the world did you come up with the same clothes that I did? And then you laugh and you look at each other and you think, there's somebody out there like me that is not in my class of, it's not in my clique, but they picked the same clothes, So there are places in the country, places in the world where the experience is not the same. And you would think that it would be like how it is in Texas or in New Mexico, or it's going to, the configuration of people, the configuration of the way things work is going to have an effect. And only on the extroverts. The introverts, they don't change much. Inside there, they've created their own world, and it can travel around in a bag or a box. They can take it with them anywhere, but they pretty much don't get changed by the environment unless they have to go out and get groceries, or, um, if they're compelled to go to see a concert, which really doesn't make any sense, I would think, from being an introvert. Going and doing extroverted things don't make any sense. There, sometimes you have to experience that. I experienced a lot of that whenever I was in Manhattan. I could go down to a dance club, or I could go to CBGB's, or I could go up here or over there. I could go to a bar across town. And, you know, you got a lot more choices in Manhattan. It's the reason why people live there, is because of all of the extroverted choices. I was there kind of as a transplant. I was thrown in the petri dish of Manhattan, and I was completely an alien being there, an introvert in an extroverted city. There are introverts there. They call them recluses. They sit in their apartments, and get um, they make calls to people to bring them stuff. They never leave their apartment because there are people out there that are not like them, and to go out there is crazy. You know, there are people in Manhattan that have lived in the same block all their life. They've probably, like people are in Texas that never left the town. They've lived in the same town all their life, and they haven't left it. They haven't gone to some far off country. Maybe some of them have, but there's not that desire of wanderlust. And I'm such an introvert that I haven't really spent much time outside this summer for more than maybe 5 or 10 days, maybe even less. I spend most all of my time indoors. So I'm one of those guys that could probably live on the moon or on Mars, being inside of a building, looking out over the horizon. It really wouldn't matter if I was there or not. I could have a VR headset and have the same experience, because I'm not going to go outside, and I'm not going to go taking samplings of rocks hoping to find some sort of existence of life in the soil, like some of these people that think they're going to get whenever they go out to Mars. Or it's great. It's an idea that's fantastic on the surface, but who's actually going to do it, and why? And once you get there, how long is that activity that going to last? And are you going to be able to return home? No, probably not. And so you're going to commit suicide out there, or you're going to end up just existing there, hoping for some more people to come in, and it's more likely you're going to die out there. And it'll probably be in the first day you're there. So it's really, people's fantasies, they'll lead them to places, and they'll end up dying or living in that fantasy world. Either they'll do it earlier, or they'll do it later. Maybe they'll fall into a parallel dimension, and they end up somewhere they never expected they would or could not foresee. But what this whole thing started over was to point out that there are people who are stuck in a lifestyle, in a career that their livelihood depends upon, and they're not going to come out of that to focus on any particular, AI music or AI graphics, or they'll probably dabble in it, but they're not going to invest in a machine that's got the NVIDIA cards in it and all that stuff. It's the younger somethings that think that that's the way to go, and that's the cool thing. But as you get older, you tend to spend less money on small stuff. if you have money, you'll spend it on big stuff, or you'll spend it, you know, on a hobby, or you'll hire somebody to experience that thing temporarily. But you're going to do it with efficiency. You're not going to do it frivolously like somebody who got money for the very first time and then they just blow it all. You can't really say it's one way or another, but for me it is that I'm not going to, I've done that stuff in the past, and I've had machines break down. I've had machines fry. I'm not a professional. I never was compelled to learn how to do electronics or fix my equipment, or, and I'm very messy and very dirty, and I tend to be very laid back. I'm not cool by other people's ideas of what cool is. I'm cool to myself. I'm filling a particular niche in society, and I've really kind of experienced a lot of stuff. I'm what's called a Renaissance man. I'm a broad. I'm a wide segment of the population. I come across all sorts of. I'm flat. I'm not very vertical, but I could be very vertical in certain things. I'm very vertical in tech. So I'm like a slope that goes upwards, but I'm not in one specific area. I'm in a bunch of, maybe at least 3 or 4. And I think it's true with a lot of people. There's only 3 or 4 areas you tend to stick in, and there's stuff that you'll never touch, but you'd admire from across the room. Somebody who's in a dance. I'm not into dance, but I like watching people dance, And we all got our vices, and what's there to say? I mean, we see it all the time on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, and everybody is a spectacle out there. We're all spectacles to the angels. The angels watch us. We're on We're on TV. We're on Earth TV, and the angels are watching us and going, "Oh, look at that! Look what they're doing there." And God's trying to keep the angels mesmerized, because the angels, their minds wander, and they're kind of like always tempted to do the wrong thing, but they can't do the wrong thing. And so they watch us on Earth TV, and they get all of their drama and all the things that makes their mind wander. They're watching it all, and they're watching it all unfold, and they've got their favorites and whatnot, and they have the capacity to be able to do that, but they've still got to serve one person, and they were all designed to serve that one being, okay? God, okay? So it's their job to service God, but at the same time, they have their little niches and their little hobbies, their mind hobbies of checking out what's on the sitcoms of the reality Earth experience, and they're checking up on all the various families and dramas and stuff. And they can do that because sin is really just going against God's will, and part of God's will is to learn about us, to listen. So the angels can do that too. They can listen and they can watch, and they just can't control anything, Not unless they're being told to. So we're on Earth TV, and we're all actors on a stage, as they say. It's the truth. We're actors on a stage. We're the actors in a play, and we're here to mesmerize the angels.